My name is Annie Eastgate. I first got into sailing on family camping trips in old little wooden boats we had in our backyard. From there I went through a Learn to Sail program and then started racing a little wooden Sabot that was from our backyard and got into regular club racing. As a little kid, it felt like the coolest sport you could do. You could hang out with your family, with your mates, in the outdoors, in the ocean, and then it became a little bit more about going out and racing and being very independent away from your parents who got to sit on land. I think the important thing when you're changing class is to think about moving sideways rather than up or down. You're wanting to find a class where you can continue learning as much as you can, and sometimes that might come down to fleet size, where the most boats are will help you learn the most. Accessibility, what's the easiest class you can find, sometimes the cheapest, what's the most fun as well. For me, it was about where all of my mates got into lasers, so I got into lasers. And we already had one in our backyard, so got into it. Yeah, once out of the Sabot, I did a little bit of 420 sailing. I sailed a few sabres as well that my parents had, and then I settled on the laser out of mainly ease of use for me. But it was really important to trial those other classes and find out what you liked, what you didn't like. I was more of a single-handed sailor, I discovered, and I wouldn't have known that had I had not sailed the 420. So it's really important, I think, trialling other classes to supercharge your learning. Any kind of decision to travel away from home is obviously comes as a big job for sailor and support network and family to get the boat down there and get there and do it. I did my first nationals when I was 16, which is probably a little bit later relative to some people now, but at that point I'd finally gotten much more competitive with my sailing at home, and it was time to test that in waters that weren't what I was familiar with. So it was about gaining experience in other places and taking what I'd learned at home and testing it against other boats rather than just my friends. International racing, a similar progression. It's important that you don't use results to measure success, especially the first few times you travel overseas. It's a bit scary. Sport can be very unforgiving, especially sailing, so there's lots of other things to look at when you're deciding. It's important to think about the processes and not the outcome, so I'm going overseas to get better at my big fleet starting. I'm not going overseas to win a race to start with. When I was younger, it was really important. Our club, they encouraged us to give back to our sport. So as soon as we'd finished learning how to sail, we were helping teach it to the next group of people. Similar through to when we were racing, parents were out volunteering, and any chance we got, we were instructing or helping on the ramp and pulling things up. And yeah, it's just how important the community aspect of this sport was definitely something I'll take with me. To me, sailing is challenge, passion and freedom.